And welcome to the next episode of the Holy Babble Podcast with me, Alec, and next to me I have the lovely
Paulina.
And today we have a very special guest.
Mary.
That was great. Well, welcome back. And so today we're going to be discussing something a little bit interesting.
A little bit controversial.
A little bit controversial with lots of opinions. So we're not going to be short of conversations today. But we're going to be discussing abortion.
Abortion.
Oh, yes.
Which can be... it makes very people angry, makes very people upset, and for all the right and wrong reasons. And yeah. I'm going to tell you straight away, I get very angry about this very quickly. So... I'm sorry.
I've got a fire extinguisher in the corner. We can put you out. We're all good.
Health and safety first. So Mary came to us all the way from lovely America.
Yeah, Cincinnati, Ohio. You know it.
Oh, so we are really international here.
Yeah.
on Holy Babble Podcast.
Yeah, obviously.
We have UK, we have US, and we have Poland. Obviously, Poland is the best. Just saying.
Nice.
It's America.
Yeah, but no matter what country you're coming from, everywhere in modern world we see the same problem raising and raging, which is lack of respect for life, especially for the unborn life. And this is what we wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, not just from a faith point of view, but also from just an everything point of view.
Honestly, for me, abortion has like nothing to do with faith. I mean, it does to do with faith, but when I talk with people about abortion, I never like bring up Christian values. It's more for me just pure science. Like,
no, I agree with you. It is one of those things where it is. If I am ever debating with someone on this issue, I try to not bring faith in it at all. It's one of those things where, if you look at a scientific standpoint and just human dignity in general, like set aside religious beliefs, it's just kind of
because when we look at the what Bible said, what God says, He in many places in Bible highlights the fact that He designed us from the moment we've been conceived. Like in Isaiah, there is I don't remember the exact verse, but there's like I formed you in the womb of your mother, and He has a plan for you from the very beginning. And when you look at Jesus and John communicating through the wombs, even like John was rejoiced when Mary visited Elizabeth, and all those things. Like if you are a Christian, being against abortion, being pro-life should be just default position. If you are Christian and you think that abortion is something that's all right, that killing unborn babies is alright, and putting women through the trauma of losing their babies is alright. That I just don't think you understand what the Christianity is really about, because it's about love and respect for everybody, no matter the stage of their life.
You are right. It is that, if you're talking to another, Christian about abortion, you can literally pull up so many different passages in the Bible that's like, well, no, like, from the moment of conception, life is there. From the moment of conception, we are human. We have a soul. We are valued. God knows us by name. He's got that plan. So if you're with a Christian, you can bring that in. However, like, let's face it, in today's society, there is a huge non-religious population out there. Like, you are surrounded by so many people who don't identify with a religion, who don't practice any religion.
And even if they do, is very often very surface level. So they don't even... A lot of people don't educate themselves on their own beliefs or the beliefs that they were raised with. Because that's the main reason why many people leave church. Because they don't try to understand it better. It's
a habit. There's no want to understand. It's just a habit, isn't it?
And again, it's a big responsibility. Because let's be honest, being pregnant and having this new person to take care of is a huge responsibility.
Oh, absolutely. There's, parenthood is not easy whatsoever. Like, there is a huge, responsibility you're giving, because it's not, you literally have another human's life that you are responsible for and to take care of. And I do think that, one of the problems we face in today is, when women are pregnant, if you're in that, picture perfect, you're married, you've got that family, you're going to have all the support you need. However, like we do have there is a huge population of single mothers, of women who are, single and pregnant and everything, and they don't receive the same support from around them. They don't have that like community that's like, oh my gosh, like congratulations. Obviously it's going to be like, it is stressful and difficult, but like, there's not that huge community to help them through all of it, because I mean, when
there's a lot of people to pat you on the back and say you're doing great, but there's not many people who actually help you.
Exactly.
And it's, I think I've seen that many times, like church and a pro-life community, they often care about babies to the moment they're born. So from the moment on they are born, and they actually need a big like financial and like just time help. I don't phrase that very well. They are being left alone, and that's a big argument that pro-choice community always pulls up and says like, yeah, you only care about fetus, you only care about the babies when they're in the womb, and once after the birth, you just leave the mother and the babies alone. And I agree kind of with the argument, because we don't see enough support provided for those poor women who are often left in such a difficult situation when they have to take this responsibility. But again, I think I'm not going to get into politics, but I think it's also a big political game, because I've seen on there's organization Life Action. I follow them on Instagram, and they are very much working against Planned Parenthood, which is one of the biggest providers of abortion in US. I saw on their Instagram story they were doing statistics from Planned Parenthood for last year, and it was $616 million that were given by government to Planned Parenthood to provide abortions. And how much more use would we have from this money if it was put towards single mothers and towards helping those people and those babies who are in need? And this is not all the money. That's only money for one provider. And I just think it's a bit ridiculous, to be honest.
No, you're absolutely right. They do get a lot of funding, and one of the reasons they're considered a nonprofit. So it's not just the government that gives them money. So many places will donate money to them. I remember, so on Facebook, you can do that thing now where when it's your birthday, you can get your friends to send money to charities. And I remember like looking through, just seeing what some of the charities were. And I did not find like one pro-life, one pregnancy center, nothing of that kind of, style of nonprofits. But Planned Parenthood was one of the ones on there. And so it's like, people will just like, oh yeah, like that's, because it's they do like praise, oh, women's healthcare. So many people are like, yeah, no, it's great. Let's do it. Let's give money to them. And it's like, well,
when you actually read in what Planned Parenthood, it's a tongue twister for me, Planned Parenthood is doing, I was just so upsetting. And the statistics there, how many lives they take every year, every day, is just horrendous.
No, yeah, you're right. And it's also like the other sad thing is like they do receive so much praise from the media, like all over. You will have celebrities just being like, oh my gosh, Planned Parenthood, you are amazing, you are great. But it's like,
I think it was Ariana Grande last year. She donated to Planned Parenthood, I think $250,000. And she was doing like, I'm doing this amazing thing to help young women around the country. And I'm like, yeah, by killing their kids. It's just, very upsetting. But we have been presented with this image that US, especially in US, everybody's pro-choice. And I want to ask you, as a resident American on the show.
I mean, I will safely say I'm not gonna lie, I'm not pro-choice, but there is a huge pro-life community. Like I've been quite a few times, but like every January they do it around the anniversary of Roe versus Wade, which is the court case that legalized abortion in America. There's the March for Life, and you will have like hundreds of thousands of pro-life individuals there, like marching for the same thing, for the right to life. And it's an amazing thing. Like there's one point through the march where you're kind of walking up a hill a little bit and you like turn around and there's a sea of just hundreds of thousands of people all there for the same thing. And it's not the one thing that is nice about the March of Life. Now, don't get me wrong, you do get a lot of like religious people there. You know, there's so many priests and nuns and church groups that go, but there is so many people. Like there'll be people who like have signs that say I'm atheist and pro-life. Like they're very much, you know, I don't, you know, believe in God, but I believe that from the moment of conception, it is a life. There is, you know, something there that we should protect. And so that, you know, there is a good chunk of people who are pro-life, but I will say pro-choice people are just louder. They really are. They're, you know, they're more vocalized because, you know, I will talk to pro-life people all the time. Like, yeah, I'm pro-life. And I have gotten into debates with pro-choice people, but so often, like, people will just, you know, oh, they're pro-choice. Like, I don't want to offend them and everything. And
it's quite funny how we feel like we're going to offend somebody who is supporting killing people.
I mean, yeah, no, but it is one of those things where it's, because, you know, people who are pro-choice get so much more support in the average day-to-day media, okay? Mm-hmm. Like, you know, don't get me wrong, and like you said, you follow Live Action on Instagram, and so do I. I think Lila Rose is amazing. I'm a huge fangirl. You know, it's fine.
I'm gonna start her fan club.
Yeah, literally, I will start a Lila Rose fan club. But, you know, there is that, you know, if you follow them, you know, that's great and everything. And obviously all the pro-life people will back them up and they'll back pro-life people up. But if you just turn on the news, if you're just scrolling through Instagram or Facebook, you will easily see something that isn't a pro-life advertisement, you know, like literally.
It's not even advertising abortion is making it a like neutral thing, because it's not like it's not necessarily that abortion is encouraged. I mean, it is. It's more like people who did abortion being praised for it, for being independent and for taking that step.
No, that is a good point as well. It is that, you know,
which is not saying that we should like judge people for doing that, because that's also
no, and you're absolutely right, because that is another issue we do face in the pro-life community so often. If you're pro-life and you meet a woman who's had an abortion, you just condemn her. You're like, oh my gosh, how could you do that? But the average woman who has an abortion will suffer from so much psychological trauma afterwards, because, you know, they'll do whatever they can to admit they're fine. They'll do whatever they need to. You know, they'll try to move on, try to pretend everything's okay. But there are so many women who come out afterwards and say, like, no, like a piece of me was ripped away when I did that, and you know, and they're constantly, you know, they don't receive the support that they need. And I do believe the pro-life movement is getting a lot better with that, is getting like, you know, you've had an abortion, we're so sorry to hear that, and we're here to help you through your emotional trauma.
Especially now, we don't, like, looking at the statistic, how many hundreds of thousands of abortions are done every year. We don't relate how many women there is who had an abortion but just very silent about it. There was a statistic that 1 in 3 women in the UK will have abortion before they're 45. So that means like half of your friends might have been through this process and they just don't say about it. And what's interesting is that a lot of pro-life advocates right now are people who used to have, who went through this and they regret it. And they understand the problem. And people who are pro-choice and are very vocal about it, but often didn't had that experience, and they don't understand how difficult and how just life-ruining can it be for a person to kill her own child. And also, I've seen on Twitter a lot of men, whenever they speak up, when they are pro-choice, everybody's like, yeah, you're being feminist, you're being in for women's rights, you're supporting. But whenever they're pro-life, it's like, no uterus, no opinion. It's like,
you see, like, and that is really sad, because, like, it literally, you know, so often, like, you know, exactly how you said, if the man's pro-choice, it's like, yeah, you're like, yeah, you're a feminist, you know, you're on our side, that's great. But you meet a pro-life man and it's my body, it's my choice. You have absolutely no right to say what I do with it.
Which is, let's just
I mean,
Let's just stop for a second for this slogan, which is like the most confusing thing. Like, your body, your choice, but your children's body is not your choice.
no, that is true.
Every time that appears, I'm just like, you are just lying to yourself. That because it's like the most known slogan for choice community, like my body, my choice. But like, your child is literally not your body. It's a separate entity with their own DNA and their own organs. And I'm just like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna go off in a second.
No, I mean, it is so true. It's very true. But so often, like, I can't tell you how many men are affected by abortion. My friend's older sister has a really good friend who, when he was in high school, he got a girl pregnant and everything. And he wasn't pro-life necessarily, but they had agreed to keep the baby. They, because he was almost out of high school. He was like, we'll make it work. It's fine. It'll all work out. And she was like, yeah, sure, it'll be great. But then she went behind his back and got an abortion. And he was really hurt by that, because even though he wasn't carrying the child, it was still his child, and it's so often, I mean, because let's face it, there is the higher statistic where, you have single moms, you've got dads out of the pictures, but there are men who are willing to raise children on their own as well. You do have single dads, and yes, they're not talked about as much as the single mother, because there's not as many of them, but you do have them, and it affects the fathers just as much as it affects the mom, because it is, at the end of the day, both of their child.
Yes. I think fathers are very just ignored in the whole program.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
What do you think, Alex? As a resident male.
As the resident male. For me, I don't debate it, because, generally my opinion's not as taken as well as a woman's. So the way I always see it is, I always think before, if that makes any sense. So I will always think of, the abortion's almost the last plead for help, isn't it? It's when all hope has gone, you've lost all of it. You see, it's rarely a quick fix. Most people aren't looking for a quick fix when they go to an abortion clinic. They're at the last bit. They've got to there because of many things have failed on them. Some people are looking for a fix, and it's almost a method of birth control, but that's very different. So for me, it's the bit before. It's responsibility for what you're doing, because the child is made with two people at the end of the day, and although the man isn't carrying it in his womb, it's he still chose to make the baby in the first place, and so I always think it's taking responsibility for the action that you did all those times ago, and realizing that the action that you did is actually made for the purpose of having children, rather than seeing it as something else. That's where I think the issue is. I think it's before you get to abortion.
I think the whole issue starts from the whole sexual revolution and contraception and everything like that. That gives people, that disconnects the child from like love of parents. Is like the side product, but it's not something that is like that has to follow because we have contraception, because we have abortion. Now we can decide whenever we want to have a child and when we want to have it, and that taking the responsibility for the action for relationship that brings life. It's just people don't want to worry themselves with it when they can take this all away and just have sex and relationship for the pleasure of it, and without any danger, let's call it danger of taking responsibility in the future. They're just gonna take it, and it's so difficult to tell people like, no, you actually have to take a step back and go back to this time when you did take responsibility for it.
Just having respect for that act, realizing that what you're actually committing to when you do it.
Yeah, just again, we disconnected love from sex, so that's a problem in itself.
No, that is a really good point. But I also think, like, kids, I mean, this might sound a little harsh, but, like, kids are such a commodity nowadays. So, like, it's like, I should be able to do whatever I want with my body. And when I want kids, I should be able to have them, like, right then and there. And you have all these women who are on birth control, who do all these things to avoid having children. And, little do they know the long term that does affect their body.
Yeah,
like when you take all this birth control, when you're putting all these chemicals in your body and altering your body's chemistry, your body's not meant for that to happen to it, you know?
Mhm.
And so then, you know, so often we hear in today's society how women are just struggling getting pregnant and everything. And it's because, you know,
Yeah,
they're
it's
not
really
patient. They
become a
want
struggle.
kids now. Like they've avoided having them for, you know, as long as they could. But now that they want them, now that they're ready to be parents, they should be able to have him right now.
So sometimes they'll do that, and they'll delay having kids, and actually that damages their body to the point where they're going to really struggle to have kids because they didn't want them earlier. So because they've wanted to wait and not wanted control, it's actually taken control away from them in some ways.
Yeah, it becomes this everything kind of connects. Like you have people who go on to contraception and all that stuff to avoid being pregnant. When they got pregnant, and when they get pregnant, they get abortion. But then they struggle to get kids in the time they want the kids, so they go into in vitro. And it's like all those things are like connected in itself.
It's all control.
Yeah,
All control.
because we want the control and we don't want to take responsibility. We want to decide when we take it. And
That's it. If you're in a secular society, we're taught that we can have control over everything. We can control what career we do. We can, you know, everything is under our control. So therefore, why shouldn't life be under our control? Why can't we do euthanasia, you know, and kill ourselves if we want? Why can't we do this? And, you know, why can't we
Yeah.
just control everything? But there has to be a line, because clearly we can't control everything. Clearly we can't.
yeah, the main question that always I think comes up whenever there is abortion discussed is at what point the fetus becomes a human. Because like it's the whole thing about human rights. At what point do we assign the fetus with human rights? Because the first human right is life to live, and we kind of rejecting that from the fetus.
If you're Christian, you're taught moment of conception, you are human. But in a secular society, you can literally, so many people, it's, you know, when they take their first breath, or, you know, you do have some people like, well, when the baby does have a heartbeat in the womb, then it's a person. You know, you do have a strong amount of people in this world that are like, well, if there's a heartbeat in the sonogram, then no, you shouldn't be able to kill it.
My question to that one would be, when someone has a heart attack and their heart stops beating, do they cease to be a person? That would be my argument.
No, exactly. Like, should you bother resuscitating them?
Exactly. Well, I think it's all about what you consider life is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so obviously we are Christian, so we believe life is willed into existence by God at the moment of conception, and He's already planned it beforehand, so He knows it's going to happen. And so actually, you know, life has been inevitable, and life forms at that very point. But it's almost as though there's already been a lot of build-up to that life being formed, almost. So that's what we believe. So we believe it's when the soul is there, and that's at the conception. So that's fine. But for other people, you know, who don't believe in a soul and things like that, convincing them through science is tricky.
But there's no point that you can like show like this is the point when the human starts, when the fetus stops, the human starts. You were saying about heartbeat, and the heartbeat actually starts for fetus on 22 days, which is 3 weeks, fourth week of pregnancy.
Like there's plenty of times where women don't even know they're pregnant.
Yeah,
Until-
but usually by
yeah.
the time
Yeah.
women maybe will find out that she's pregnant. The brain, the neutral plate forms at 16 days, which is like the base for your brain and for your spine cord. And breathing starts at 15 weeks. So usually before you know that you're pregnant and you can make this decision that you don't want the child is already a human. Even if you don't look at it from like religious perspective, it's still.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I remember getting into the argument, and it's kind of similar to what you were saying about the, you know, if you have a heart attack, are they not a person anymore? Should you not resuscitate them? I got into a debate with someone because their stance was when that baby takes its first breath, then they are a human. And I remember thinking like, well, one of my siblings was born with the umbilical cord around her neck. Like when she was born, she couldn't breathe. Like she came out blue, you know, so she was there like moving and like her, you know, trying to breathe, but she couldn't. So was she not a human then? Like, could they have been like, well, I mean, she's not a human and we really don't have to save her if we don't, you know, could my parents have been like, nah, don't worry about it. I know that sounds really harsh, but like, you know, could they?
Yeah, but when you have people who want to legalize abortion up till birth, oh my God, up till birth.
We could have brought anyone up to death. That's good.
No, you have people who want to legalize abortion up till the moment of birth. Then you have kids who were born at 7 months, and they are treated as a human. But then you have 9 months fetus who's been killed. And how do you...
What would you do with a premature baby?
Exactly.
What would you do with a 2 months premature?
It only depends whatever mother wants it or not. If it's a human or that...
So back to control again.
Yeah.
Same thing.
And it's so unfair. It's
but you also have those people who are like, well, if it can't survive on its own, then it's not a human. But I'm sorry, my 3-year-old sister could not survive on her own. Like, she's 3.
I can't survive
mine. Exactly. Like, our whole lives, we do need that help. A baby will, like, if you just, like, lay a baby down, you're like, cool, survive on your own. Go for it. Like, live life to the fullest. It's not going to, they're not going to be able to because they can't, they're babies. They're children. Like, they can't survive on their own.
I think in a way, it's us exerting our power over someone else. In a way, isn't it? Because then you have power over this thing inside you. You see it as lesser than yourself. Otherwise, how would you be able to kill it? If you saw it as equal to yourself, how would you be able to kill it?
I mean, you could, but it's again, you don't have respect for it.
But you do have all these people, all these pro-choice people who, they have all these arguments and everything. And I know there's so many women out there who have had abortions, are okay with abortions, and all these arguments that they say, they're trying to also convince themselves because there is something deep down, if it wasn't wrong, there wouldn't be such a controversial debate about it. If it wasn't wrong, there wouldn't be this, split society where it's, you have people who are like, no, abortion is absolutely wrong. And then people who are like, nah, do whatever you want. It's great. Like there is such a split society, and there wouldn't be that if it was okay. You wouldn't have such two extreme sides if it was okay. You do have so many pro-choice people that the only person they're really trying to convince is themselves, that they've made the right decision, that it is okay.
Which is again comes from the fact that there are so many women who had abortion, but they stay silent about it because it is still a taboo. It's still like such a personal, like delicate matter that you don't want to really boast about it, because like we had that in our instinct, I guess, in deep down, like we know that we did something that's not right. Like we've been saying in the other episode, that you have that sense of love that is within, and who put that in you. I think it's the same sense of like love and sense of being human that makes you realize that you did something wrong, even if you don't want to admit it. And it's again, we need to treat those women who already had an abortion with such a respect as well, and because they are going through something very difficult. Because I'm sure most of them, if they had a choice and if they had a situation that allows them to have a kid right now or provide a kid with the proper care and proper support, they wouldn't have an abortion. And they are victims in that situation as well, because they're very much victims of the system, of the propaganda that's fine, you can do whatever you want, it's your body, you don't have to worry about the child. And they are being hurt so much that the only way from them to cope is to talk themselves into like, yeah, I'm fine, it's all good. And I think that's a big tragedy in that as well, that we also tend to ignore because we focus so much on the kids that we also sometimes forget to notice the mother who are struggling.
And at the end of the day, it's what's in their head that matters. So it's the fact that they thought there wasn't any hope. The fact that they thought they had to do this, that's so sad. The place they were in when they must have chosen, or the whole area they got themselves in is such a grim one.
Yeah. When we discuss abortion, a lot of times we have those extreme arguments like, oh, what if that was rape or incest? But statistics shows that most of the time it's not. Of course, we have this difficult situation of women who've been raped, who've been in horrible situation that they don't know how to deal with it, and they just want to like cut themselves off from whatever happened. But most of the time, it's not. Most of the time, those are the women who have different kind of struggle, which are more easy to deal with, that we can help them with.
No, yeah, that is a really good point. Obviously, like there are like women, have been through very traumatic experiences, and you said something like, like rape, they're like they want to try to go back to the way their life used to be before that very, very traumatic and terrible experience that they have had. And so they're like, oh, like if they find out they're pregnant, they think that, oh, if I have an abortion, it'll be fine, and I can go back to the way my life used to be, and it'll help me. But that's not always the case. And when you do have that argument, why? Okay, if we said, all right, abortion is illegal except in cases of rape and incest. Well, why is that life not valued? Why is that not?
The baby didn't rape anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Baby.
Because
it's the baby. You're right. It's not the baby's fault. It's and I do believe that obviously, like, if it's really only works if you're in that you are like Christian or religious. It's I do believe that God tries to work beautiful things out of terrible situations. He does try to bring something beautiful and good out of something that is absolutely evil and terrible, And so I think that a lot of women, because there have been women who have had children after being raped, and they say, like, the amount of peace and that they had from their child, like, it actually helps them get through that traumatic situation a lot easier when they kept the baby and everything. And like I said before, it's not the baby's fault,
It's such a big thing to require from women to carry the child for 9 months and deliver it when she's been through such a traumatic thing. But again, it's just we need to provide more support for them as well, because they're struggling so much. Well, no matter if it's like extreme situation like rape, or is it just like financial instability, or like being left alone by your partner, we need to focus more on giving support they need, because it's a cry for help, honestly.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100% on that.
So, okay, if I was considering having an abortion, which I clearly could, and I was literally standing outside the clinic where I was going to have it done, and, but I was umming and ahhing, what would you say to me?
First, I'd ask you, like, why do you think this is your only option? Like, why do you think that you have to do this? Like, are you not getting the support you need? Is it financial? Like, there are so many other options, and there are people out there who are willing to help you. And, I think asking that person, like, well, why? Like, why do you want to do this? Because you do, and being, like, very respectful, and obviously, like, if you shout at a person, like, don't do it, no, you're a murderer, like, that's not going to make them change their mind. That's not going to do it at all. You do have to be that, show them that there are loving and caring people out there that want to help them, that will love their child as much as they will, that will love them as much as they will love their child, like, to have that solid support system. That's what I would make sure that they knew that they could have.
And I would just let Mary speak. Because I think, exactly. I agree with you 100%.
I will say one more thing for the man's thing. Sometimes it's the man who puts the pressure on to have the abortion. So
yes,
no, absolutely.
Well, so sometimes we're saying the man doesn't have an opinion, but sometimes it's the other way around. So.
No, there are so many women that are worried because their boyfriend, their husband, their fiance, whoever will leave them if they keep the baby, and it's him or them, and obviously they can't imagine their life without them, and so they do whatever their boyfriend, husband says. They think that they have to, but if a guy is making you choose between a baby and him, then I really don't think he loves you that much.
Yes.
He's not putting your needs in front of his own. Yes. Which is a bit harsh. That is a bit harsh, but
So that's the truth there.
Yeah, that's why it's so important that we also get involved in like pro-life movement and try to provide this support and this respect that those women need, and they can make a right choice and they can live with it and they can just be happy, because that's pretty much stripping them down from their happiness as well. So yeah, there are lots of ways to support pro-life community, from following Life Action on Instagram to going on live on the marches and everything like that. I need to get more involved in that, because I have such a big emotions about it, but I don't do enough. And I think many people are guilty of that as well, that they're not doing enough.
I think that, like, I've always thought this, like, one of the reasons the pro-choice voice is a bit louder than the pro-life's is because not only is it our voice we're trying to express, but we're sharing our voice with those who can't speak, with the voiceless, so, I might sound as loud as you, but it's not, I'm also speaking on behalf of this person that can't speak, and I think that we also need to make, such a larger effort of being just as loud as them, because we do have a bigger responsibility. Like, we are entrusting ourselves to give those babies a voice that don't have a voice.
And we have to be very confident in it, because science is on our side and we know we're right. Basically, it's just explaining people and treating people with love and respect so they can accept the situation they are in and try to find different solution, basically.
Yeah, I would say if you are listening to this and you have considered having an abortion and you've stumbled upon this podcast, please don't be offended by anything we've said. Just there's one word that always sums up every single argument, and that's love. And so long as love is there, that's it. And all we would ask you to do, if you were considering it, would be please take both sides. You don't have to take everything we've said for absolute granted, but please just think of love. What is the most loving way you can deal with the situation that you're in? And just consider that. That would be the one thing that I'd ask you to consider.
Yeah. And there is support. There is support out there. It might be not so easily visible, but there are people who are willing to help you.
Yeah, and there is hope.
Yeah.
Always hope.
Oh, yeah. All right. I think that will be enough for today's episode. I'm sorry for anybody who we offended. And thank you for sticking out so long with us.
You've made it to the third episode that you do well. You're doing well.
It's only down here from now. So okay, thank you so much for watching. If you want, you can follow us on social media on Holly_Babble when I'm chilling and doing nothing. And yeah, I don't know, we'll talk in the next episode, but
it'll be good, whatever it is.
Unfortunately, I don't think Mary's staying with us for next episode, but we'll try to get her in again because I enjoy talking with her.
Oh, thanks, pal. You're not too bad yourself.
Oh, yeah. All right, we're making friendships here. All right. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll hear you next week. Amen.